Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. The Young and the Restless spoilers. Diane's revenge on Kyle claws come out after son's theft exposed. The Young and the Restless, Y&R. Spoilers reveal that Diane Jenkins Abbott, Susan Walters, has already been fed up with Kyle Abbott, Michael Mueller, but she'll soon have a new reason to lash out. Now that Kyle has made another sneaky move against his mother, Diane is sure to want revenge. Diane has been pleading with Kyle to stay at the Abbott mansion with Harrison Abbott, Redding Munsell, instead of moving out like he plans. However, living in the same house with Diane clearly has its disadvantages for Kyle. Kyle happened to come along and find Diane's laptop, so he checked and found that it was still logged in. That allowed Kyle to snoop and ultimately give Victor Newman, Eric Braeden, intel on an incredible moisturizer that's in the works at Jabot. Now Glissade has an opportunity to move ahead with the project, so Diane will surely be furious once she finds out what Kyle has done. Of course, it'd be fun if there was a twist, right? What if Diane assumed Kyle would make a move like that and intentionally planted fake product info to see if he'd take the bait? Unfortunately, Diane isn't quite as skilled in thinking ahead with chess moves and making predictions like Victor, so she may have just left her computer logged in by mistake. Regardless, the fact that Kyle was willing to get on Diane's laptop and steal intel says a lot about his character. Kyle constantly plays the victim and then does stuff like this to prove he's earned all the backlash he's received. The truth is that Kyle undermined Diane nonstop and finally got booted out of Jabot for it. Kyle can whine about that all he wants and even bring up Diane's past mistakes to justify his actions, but it's his own fault that he lost that job. Now Kyle is trying to make a name for himself at Glissade, but is he really doing that when he still has to steal Jabot's products instead of developing his own? Kyle deserves a downfall, so we can only hope that Y&R has a big one brewing sooner or later. As for Diane, she'll surely retaliate against Kyle in some way after his latest theft. Diane might wash her hands of Kyle at this point, since she's not sure what else she can do to repair the relationship. Since Kyle's willing to get down in the mud and hurt Jabot in the process, the claws may come out when Diane decides to fight back. The Young and the Restless spoilers say Diane and Kyle have another major blow-up ahead no matter what, so stay tuned for updates on the bad news that's looming. Diane Jenkins had always played a delicate game, especially when it came to her son Kyle Abbott. She had spent years attempting to earn back the trust of her son, the Abbott family, and all of Geno City after returning from the dead. It wasn't an easy feat, and her every move was scrutinized. But Diane had become an expert at navigating the social minefields ever since she clawed her way back into her family's life. But what Diane hadn't prepared for was betrayal, especially from Kyle, the son she had fought so hard to protect. As whispers in the halls of Jabot grew louder, Diane's suspicions about her son's recent behavior turned into a chilling reality. Kyle's theft, a secret he had desperately tried to keep under wraps, had been exposed, and now Diane's carefully crafted world was on the verge of collapse. In a town where loyalty was everything, betrayal cut deeper than any blade. The beginning of the end. It started as a rumor, a faint tremor in the steady rhythm of Diane's life. She had heard from a few of the Jabot employees that something was amiss with the company's financials. A large sum of money had vanished from one of the subsidiary accounts. At first, it seemed like an internal error, a mistake easily fixed by a quick audit. But as the days passed, the missing funds could no longer be ignored, and neither could the peculiar behavior of her son. Kyle had been distant, meetings were being missed, phone calls dodged, and his once steady hand at the helm of the company began to waver. Diane noticed everything. He wasn't just evading her, but also of his father, Jack Abbott, and others in their close-knit circle. Something was wrong, and it didn't take long for Diane to put the pieces together. Kyle had stolen from his own family's company. It was a devastating discovery. As the truth unraveled, Diane found that Kyle had siphoned off money in a desperate attempt to cover personal debts he had incurred from shady business dealings that had gone awry. The theft had not only endangered Jabot's financial stability, but also put the family's legacy at risk. Diane felt the walls of her carefully rebuilt life start to close in. Diane's fury awakens. When the full extent of Kyle's betrayal came to light, Diane was plunged into a mixture of rage and heartbreak. Kyle had always been her greatest treasure, the one thing she had sworn to protect at all costs. To know he had betrayed not only his family but the company she had fought to shield from her own scandals was a wound that cut her deeply. The old Diane, the one who had spent years scheming and manipulating to get her way in Geno City, began to re-emerge. Her claws, long hidden beneath the surface, were sharpening once more. Diane had spent too much time, too much effort, rebuilding her relationship with Kyle and carving out a place in the Abbott family to let it all crumble because of his reckless actions. But revenge wasn't just about punishment, it was about teaching Kyle a lesson he would never forget. Diane had a plan, one that would remind everyone in Geno City, including her son, that she wasn't someone to cross. The Abbott family confrontation. Diane had kept her discovery close to her chest, knowing that if she made the wrong move too soon, she might lose any leverage she had over Kyle. The Abbott family was already fragile, with tension simmering between Jack, Ashley, and Billy over the direction of Jabot. Adding Kyle's betrayal to the mix would be like throwing gasoline on an already roaring fire. But Diane knew the time for silence was over. She gathered the family at the Abbott mansion, a place that had always been the backdrop for their biggest confrontations and revelations. Jack stood at the head of the room, his brow furrowed with concern, while Ashley and Billy exchanged uneasy glances. They could all sense something was coming, but none of them were prepared for what Diane was about to reveal. Kyle has been stealing from the company, Diane announced coldly, her eyes never leaving her son's pale face. The room fell into stunned silence, and for a moment all Diane could hear was the sound of her own heartbeat, pounding in her ears. Jack was the first to speak. "What are you talking about, Diane?" Diane's voice was steady as she explained the details, how Kyle had diverted funds to cover up his personal financial missteps, how the missing money had jeopardized several key deals, and how his actions had put Jabot in a precarious position. Every word felt like a hammer blow, each one driving the wedge deeper between Kyle and his family. Kyle's desperation. Kyle, now cornered, tried to defend himself. His voice shook as he pleaded with his mother and the family. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was going to fix it before anyone noticed. But it was too late. The damage was done." Diane's expression remained icy. She had once been the one on the receiving end of the Abbott family's scorn, and she wasn't about to let Kyle walk away unscathed. "You didn't just steal from the company, Kyle. You stole from your family. From me." Kyle's face twisted in anguish. "Mom, please. I didn't know what else to do. I was in too deep." Diane cut him off. "And now you're going to pay the price." Diane's plan for revenge. Diane had no intention of turning Kyle over to the authorities or completely destroying his life, yet. But she needed him to understand that his actions had consequences, and that she was the one in control now. Her plan wasn't about ruining Kyle. It was about making sure he never crossed her again. She convinced Jack to temporarily strip Kyle of his position at Jabot, forcing him to face the consequences of his actions without the protection of his family's power. Kyle would have to earn his way back into the company, just like Diane had to earn her place back in their lives. But Diane's real revenge was much more personal. She would ensure that Kyle knew the depths of his betrayal, and she would keep him close, reminding him every day that his fall from grace was his own doing. She would manipulate the situation to make sure he never forgot who held the power now. The claws were out, and Diane Jenkins was not about to let her son forget it.